Okay. We should be good. Yeah, we should be good. It's so crazy that I don't really see any noticeable CPU increase after going live with this service compared to the last one.
Right. I forgot we don't have a splash screen. We're actually live now, huh?
Yeah.
Surprise! Hi.
I should probably ask about that, actually. Hey, what's up, Nick? Via I see. Via vanilla JavaScript?
Yeah, so there's this. I work on this little API, and one of the kids from the ham radio group that's part of RHR, he's about 14, super smart and super willing to learn, and like he's just going straight at JavaScript, but just in the browser, right? Like he knows how to build web pages, and so now he wants to add functionality and do all this stuff. Like he was asking me about. You're like, I just want to fetch this data from this other thing. And I'm like, well, you can't do that because of cores. Like, how do you explain cores to someone who like? I mean, he gets it, but it's just you forget how much there is to know, man. So I'm trying to walk him now. Like, well, he's fetching data from an API, but he's like, no, I want to render it on a table. I'm like, well, you could use Vue.js and just use a for loop, but that's a whole thing. Everything's a whole thing, Sean.
Yep. That's fine now. It's okay that it's a thing.
There's got to be like an easy drop-in. Is there like an easy drop-in way that, like, would Alpine be good for this?
Alpine would probably be the most straightforward. I mean, you have to learn a little bit of DSL, right, with the directives. But similar to how to Vue, like Vue templates have directives you have to learn, but not too much.
So this even has an example on the page here with fetch that he can figure out. It has a little spinner. At nested X4 is X4.
What's up, everybody? Welcome.
Man. I guess I could throw Alpine at him, but I don't know.
Boom, 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 boom. It's been cold here. I've been freezing all day. It's hard to type when it's cold. The weather seems to be opposite of what it is with my Canadian coworkers. They'll be freezing, and then I'll be sitting in the sun, and then I'll be freezing, and they'll be like, oh, it's beautiful today.
Yeah, it's 35 here right now. Not cool. Not cool.
What is it here, actually? It's like 50. Just tell that person to get into the Discord.
No. Unless he's watching. In which case, hi.
Decompress.
I'm already in Discord. I'm in their Discord.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I feel that, man. I've been out of work for a few hours now, and I'm still just like up here. It's good though.
Are you using Celsius, Thomas? $11 Celsius. No, 18 Celsius seems high, right? What is 18 Celsius? See that.
It's like 56 degrees.
No, 16 is 60. So 18 would be 64.
No, 20 is 58, I thought.
Incorrect. 20 is 68 degrees.
Oh, 68.
Yeah.
I think it's 60. Standard temperature and pressure. STP.
How's everybody's week been so far?
Well, Sean, I'm glad you asked. You're not talking to me, are you?
I'm talking to anybody that will respond at this point. I see, Thomas. That makes sense. I mean, for what it's worth, I wish we would also be using the metric system.
If it helps you in aviation, distances are in nautical miles, except for when you're talking about weather, because then it's in statute miles. Temperatures are in Celsius and dew points are in Celsius. Altitudes are in feet. Speed is in knots, as in nautical miles per hour, like a ship. And what's another weird unit? Oh, pressure. Standard pressure is in inches of mercury. They just could not. No one just could make a consensus there. It's a real mess.
Oh man, tomorrow is half day for us.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. It's nice. I'll talk about this a little bit maybe today, but I made my job more difficult this week, but it's been good. What are you doing? I'll boot you right out of here.
I'm the admin now.
Got a good week too?
Yeah, I'm exhausted. Started actually HDF, high definition fun, hardy,
Half day Friday is what he
dense
said.
forests. Oh,
Which have officially been extended until September, I think. I think it was September.
you get paid half day?
No. Yeah, it's actually really nice. Moved all the planning meetings and stuff and retros to Thursday, and so Fridays feel like quiet
Mm-hmm.
and very productive. Even it's a short week.
Yeah, it's nice. It's
What
so weird for
holiday?
me to be on with Dockard people and be like, today, and be like, okay, I'll have a nice weekend, you know.
Right.
Excuse me. Yeah, what holiday?
Yeah, what holiday is that?
Oh, 420.
Oh, right. No one's got time
Not-
for that.
It's only a matter of time before Connecticut legalizes. Like, pretty much every state around us has at this point. They just hate money, apparently.
Oh man.
Close. All things web dev.
What's up, Sultan? I'm pretty much ready to go whenever, I think.
You're jazzed
Whenever-
up?
Well, maybe we'll get there. I'm losing steam, so
All right. Thanks for coming out, everyone, as always. You guys are the best. I mean that. This is awesome of crew here.
just finishing my notes.
Notes on like a paper, like a dead tree.
Yep.
Fiber.
Yeah, the contractor life.
Yeah, Paul, definitely get into that. I actually have a fun little story I could kick off with that, but other than that, it's just a lot more of the same. But I wanted to save time for Sean's thing, so. But don't no worries, Paul.
I don't have a thing. Nothing.
Sorry, I don't want to spoil. I just ruined everything. Sorry. Oh my god, we just. Never mind. We can talk about this after, but we just finished season 5 of Schitt's Creek. Just loving that show.
It's pretty good.
Good recommendation, Sean. Thank you for that.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I need to go and rewatch it again.
It's funny how I didn't realize how like recent it was, you know, because it just ended like last year or something, right?
Mm.
So it's nice to watch modern. Like,
No,
actually
you die
modern show.
first. No, you die first.
Oh my god!
They're fighting over.
David.
They're fighting over who sleeps closest to the door because they think they're going to be murdered. It's like, no, you die first.
Sometimes Jess and I will just start talking like Moira, just talk around the house, and we just talk like this. Jessica.
Herbert lingers. I can't remember the rest of it. Herbert linger in his fruit wines. Livewire. You mean LiveView?
I think Thomas is trolling.
Boot him right on out of here.
Saying
All right,
no,
yeah.
This ain't the house of DHH anymore.
We can get
It's
going.
the
I had to
house of CMM.
I unfollowed DHH
You did?
recently.
Couldn't
yeah.
take the heat, the hot takes.
Just complain about literally everything. Why don't you? Just got it mixed up. Nah, he's trolling.
Now
Alright,
he's
you
doubling.
ready?
He's doubling down. All right. I'm recording.
Sorry. All right, it's my turn to clap.
I think so.
Right, Paul? All right, ready?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3.
It's a little late. Note to
Thomas.
self, I was a little late.
Thomas.
Thomas in chat asks, "Hey, why did a rabbi and a clown go to the sauna?" Paul Starr asks, "Why?" Thomas says, "For schwitz and giggles."
Nice. Is that going to be a segment of the show? Thomas brings a joke.
We could just have a whole episode where we just record them all, and then we could just cut them in.
Yeah, that's true.
Do a joke episode.
Oh, I didn't highlight the applause. There we go. Applause for the joke.
That used to be a thing they would do every year on. I used to listen to Prairie Home Companion with my dad, and they did a joke show every year, and it was, it's all like boomer humor, but there's some good family-friendly stuff in there. Shout out to Prairie Home Companion.
What did you just say?
Prairie Home Companion.
Prairie Home Companion.
So NPR, she's having to describe it, variety show with like folk music and.
Oh, for people that live on the prairie.
Yeah. Yes. Prairie Home Companion. It's the whole thing. prairiehome.org.
Prairie Home. Oh, thanks, Thomas. Now if I could only copy and paste this text instead of a div goes up on top of it.
Didn't mean to do that. All right.
Yeah, so the chat has already been asking about contract life over there.
Yeah, man. I'm still. It's the end of phase 0. I'm still pretty burnt out at the end of the day. The meetings have started to wane as we've worked out some of these planning kinks in these long meetings. And now has begun the pair programming, and I'm still kind of feeling my way around that experience because for beginning this project, we're going to be doing a lot of pairing because there's a lot of foundational work that needs to be done before we can split off and, work in parallel. So
Are you pairing because you can't parallelize the work or like do work in parallel, or are you pairing as like a rule of thumb there?
We just agreed to do it at the start. I think just to, to kind of kick things off.
So like strong foundations, getting the foundations right, plus you can't do it all in parallel, so kind of
Yeah,
roadblocked.
exactly. I mean, we're doing stuff like we're still like making migrations and stuff, like that kind of stuff you can't really even move forward without.
Right.
And, I think once we kind of go through a couple of, like, for example, like, let's go through together designing one screen and making sure that works. And then once we get this kind of flow and figure out what tools we need and how to do it, maybe then we could split off and then each do a different screen or, that something like that, right?
Okay.
so many opinions and options and decisions to be made, and I don't know how much autonomy I'm supposed to have for making those decisions versus deferring to, like, the code base is so bare. It's not like you can even go look through the code base to see what other people have done before you, because it's mixed Phoenix new, basically. There's not a lot in there besides boilerplate.
So I have some follow-up questions for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're thinking about, you don't know how much agency you should really have to be able to just go and do whatever you want. And it sounds like there's been a lot of planning meetings. What's sort of been coming out of the planning meetings?
If not that.
If not that. Right. That's what I mean. So I guess what I'm really getting at is there, I assume there's like a project lead. Is there sort of like a set of plans, like architecture level plans, things that you can sort of follow or fall back on, I guess, when you're implementing, or how does that work?
So I think the stuff that I'm getting hung up on is sort of, well, there's two things. There's architectural things, like you said, and then there's also sort of like nitpicky little details. Not even nitpicky, just like important details that are so small, but they're kind of crucial. Like things as simple as, when I'm adding this field, should it be a null or not? Like, should we allow nulls in this column,
okay,
right?
yeah.
Like stuff like that. And it's without the full, like, this project is so big and all this planning has been done already, not by me. I don't have the full context for, how things are, sort of what's already been designed and how it's supposed to work, and then, how to continue in that direction. So there's that piece of it. And then, like, I feel like some of those things could be codified, code style things, not just code style, but like, hey, what to do in this situation, never have a string field that is nullable, right? Like, give me rules like that so that I can follow them, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is sort of the higher level architecture thing, it's, you and I know how quickly the sort of Phoenix context boundary driven design just kind of falls apart as a project grows. And I already see those growing pains, and I'm just not sure how that's gonna evolve.
That's interesting.
I don't know. I don't know if there's anything really to be done about it at this point, because so many people are touching the code, and there's going to be a lot of crossover. So,
yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about that and think about how I approach that with my project. Obviously, very different projects, right? Mine's not really full stack. Mine's front end only, but we have a lot of similar stuff. I guess, like, when I took over the project, there's documentation, but there wasn't, like an MR kind of like technical guide of things to merge. I mean, like MRPR, we're using GitLab, so MR. There wasn't like a merge request sort of technical guide of jumping off points or stylistic points that we want to enforce in the project. And I guess a lot of like stylistic things it should probably be ESLint rules or configs or something similar, something that's automated. But I've sort of been adding that as I've been going. Is sort of all that documentation and kind of sharing that with the team, and following up in the retros, like, are we using this guide, or is it useful? Do you have stuff to add to it, etc.? It's been super helpful to do that, but it's definitely time consuming.
Yeah, I think maybe where this feedback loop will. Let me start that again. I think that maybe how this is going to go is I'm going to get this feedback through the PRs and the MRs. I just got to know to pick the right person. Hey, we require 2 reviewers. So, hey, pick the right person to review this, and maybe even ask specifically, is this okay? Is that okay? Like, at that point, maybe, when someone's taking the time to sit down and work with it, then maybe I'll be able to sort of inform those decisions, because I can always change it at that point. It's not the end of the world. And
yeah. So, and these are questions that I sort of bring up where I'm at now. And my first question is like, well, there have been projects past. Why hasn't sort of a standard been extracted? And a common answer I get, especially in consulting, is, well, maybe the common things to extract don't apply project to project. And I say, they probably do. A lot of them probably do.
You got that BS button.
Right.
No, I think you're right. And I was kind of surprised at that as well. Maybe it's just because it's been on the mind and we've been talking about it a lot. I was maybe expecting that a consultancy with so many years of experience with this technology would have some kind of guidelines. Now, that being said, I also don't have access to the full Google Docs, folders and everything as a contractor. I guess I don't have access to the right things. So I might have to just reach out to someone and be like, hey, does this exist? Because I could be totally
right.
Maybe they just assume I have it.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good call. There's a lot of stuff in the Notion that's buried that's kind of contextual like that. If I don't ask about it, then someone doesn't know to share it with me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good call out. I guess another question I might have is like, I know the project you're on is a rebuild. Do you happen to know if I would have to assume that there's going to be some sort of like migration of current production data to the current project? So I'm wondering if some of these stylistic things should be pulled from that. For example, like if you're changing null values or what's allowed, like if you allow, like make a string column not nullable, is that backwards compatible with their current schema?
That's a very good call. The migration code is about half merged into main right now. And so, ask me again in a week. The PR was so big that the guy who was doing it actually had to split it up into 4 PRs. It was like 14,000 lines of code or something,
That's
right?
crazy.
The migrator is itself its own application in the umbrella project.
Interesting.
Because it's such a big piece. He's been working on it for a week. So
Right.
I will definitely look to that to be informed. That's a really good call.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of brings up something that Jaggy from Side Door and I were chatting a little bit about. Was Side Door is basically going like a certain direction in terms of it being sort of like a more general purpose e-commerce store for designers instead of like specialized collections. And this was something that we fought against in the beginning, but it seems like a losing battle because it seems like the designers are engineering their collections in a way that is basically just an e-commerce store at that point. So instead of having collection for Rockwell's design job and Paul Straw's design job, they have collections of like living room, bathroom, bedroom, and then they just like embed those on whatever, right? So they're kind of engineering it themselves to be this way. So if they do embrace that approach, then making these changes will involve lots of data migrations, which are always tricky. So one of the ideas was like, well, what instead of migrating this data in place all the time and kind of like having it be tricky like that, what if we spun up a second database and slowly move things over that way? And so if you needed to, you could always just have the database that you didn't ruin just exist as it is, right? There's obviously challenges with that, but that was an approach that I would have never come up with. But he was like, hey, this is just an idea, so it's interesting to think about. Like when you're saying this migration thing is like 14,000 lines long, I start to think about different strategies for moving data from one place to another.
I might be exaggerating there, but that for some reason that number comes to my head. Maybe it was 1,400. Maybe that makes more sense.
So a lot.
It was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
I did have a cool... one of the things that I kind of knew I was gonna be able to experience, but I wasn't expecting so early was networking opportunities. I was chatting with my partner who I'm pairing with, and he mentioned a client that they had in the past, and I remembered that one of my old coworkers from Agilent back in 2013 went to leave Agilent to go work for this client. So I'm like, hey, do you actually know this guy? Do you know this guy, Mark? And he's like, no, I don't think it's the same Mark. And turns out it was the same Mark. So my former coworker at Agilent his company hired Dockyard to do a project with him. And I've come full circle. And like, how crazy is that? Small world, man.
Oh, well, yeah, same on the project I'm on. The designer we've had is leaving for mat leave soon, maternity leave. So we have a new designer coming in. And it turns out it's a designer that interned at Octopus back in the day when I was at Octopus. So, yeah, small world.
The industry is gigantic and small at the same time, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I was talking to my producer about it, and she was like, oh, I hear you know this person. And she said this person's name, and I was like, no way. They, interned back in the day. And then we got connected via email when we were kind of like exchanging documentation links and stuff like that, and they remembered too. So it's kind of crazy.
So be careful who you start flame wars with on Twitter, Sean.
Right. Yeah. I just unfollow people as a policy, I guess, for my own sanity.
But yeah, it's been a week, and we really try to hit the ground running next week. The other thing that's I think it's slow because we're starting, but it's just the amount of time spent per lines of code written that ratio sure feels off to me.
Yeah.
And Sorry, I gotta pause here, Sean. Your camera disconnected.
I'm aware.
You're just this terrifying ghost blob. I love that the background continues to work though.
This is why I want to not be using my phone for a webcam long term. I just have to like sort that out.
Yeah.
All I did was unplug it and plug it into a different port on my dock. So there we go. Who knows?
But yeah, it feels like we're moving really slow because it's hard to get that heads down time to actually, write code. But like I said, there's just so many decisions to be made and kind of tiptoeing around, trying not to do double work, trying not to,
right.
I don't know. We'll get there. I have faith. Another couple weeks and I feel like I'll have some velocity, as they call it. I learned that term, velocity. That's a thing. I don't know what it is. Points per minute.
Your sprint velocity.
That's
points per points. How many points you can close out during a sprint?
All the points. I'm gonna do all the points, John.
Points per minute. Yeah, that's what Paul is saying. Points per minute. Question mark.
It's just like it's fractional. 0.0007 points per minute or something. I mean, you can,
sure.
Millipoints.
Yeah.
Don't listen to me anymore. I'm extremely tired.
So yeah. I mean, writing software is hard. Writing software as like an indie is hard. Writing software by yourself is hard, but writing software with a team is real hard. And the more people you add to it, the harder it gets.
Yeah, it's not moving a ship. I worked at Agilent. That was a many hundreds of people, and my team was 14 people or whatever, and we had to deliver to those hardware teams and front end teams and all this stuff, and that was a ship. That was moving a ship, but because what you were working on there was so hyper focused, it was pretty small pretty small chance that someone was going to be working out at the same time as you, so you could just like blast through, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is so it's like steering. I don't know what's a very immovable. Like it's like trying to steer a party boat. Those like pontoon party boats, right? It's not gonna win a yacht race, but eventually you need like half the width of the lake to turn it around.
It's like the leveler machine in Austin Powers. It's like, get out of the way, and Austin Powers is like, no, and it zooms out and it's moving like 2 inches.
Oh, the steamroller.
The steamroller, yeah. Yeah. Kind of feels like that sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah, so on our side, I've been changing stuff up, right? So I've mentioned that we have two more junior devs, not two additional, but two not junior, but I don't know, intermediate devs, I could say, on the project. And up until this point, they've sort of just been like working on tickets like that are atomic, that are kind of self-contained, that have a prescribed solution in most cases. So they've been talking about wanting to learn more and grow more and learn more roles. And so I slowly been backing off the strong prescriptions in the tickets so they can sort of make their own and we can discuss. And then every now and then I would hand them like, okay, you can lead the kickoff meeting, you can lead this planning meeting, you can, give them more experience. But we just took it up a notch this week where before I still am the engine lead, but before I was like doing all the planning, all the writing, all the prescriptions, and then chopping it up and then having them run with it. And so now we're doing sort of feature leads. So what we did this week is we looked at some new features coming in. We cut it up into epics or, chunks of units of work. And I was like, all right, which one sounds interesting? Pick one, put your name, like assign your name into it in the Notion column, database column. And so I was like, okay, now you're responsible for doing the technical planning for this feature. You're responsible for doing the Jira breakdown of this feature into tickets. You're responsible for leading out the development of this feature, and you're responsible for presenting this feature to the client when it ships. And what I knew that it was going to be more difficult for me because I could tightly control everything before, like with my timelines, when the planning would be done, when the pitches were happening and all that stuff, right? But now it's like I could see where the state of their work was at just by looking at a single Notion board, and I can't do that anymore. So I'm having to like set more reminders like, oh, I know we have a planning call to like later this week, so I need to remind them, hey, your planning docs have to be done by this time so you can have your Jira stuff done by this meeting so we can actually do what we need to do for this meeting.
You're doing the higher level sort of
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we switched it up to get them reps, but it's getting me way more reps. Like, it's like I'm managing a bigger team now, which is good for me because, this project is pretty easy to manage and there'll be more projects where it won't be easy to manage. So I wasn't expecting that to blow back at me, but it's fine.
And
yeah.
Is that, I mean, so that's something that they were actively asking for was more, I mean, it sounds like more responsibility, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, and autonomy.
Yes.
How big are those individual teams then that you've split off now?
Just them.
Oh, solo.
Yeah, just solo. So there's only 3 of us, which is partly why it's super easy for me to manage. Just doing all the planning because you can only work on one feature at a time, and now it's 2 or 3, which is good. I guess depending on timing, depending on priorities and stuff like that. But there's a lot of good problems that this introduces, like difficult problems that are hard to solve anyway. Like you mentioned, doing work in parallel. So now that we have 3 different feature leads working on any one thing at a time, they also have to be aware of like what's blocking who and be able to communicate to those teams and document decisions and things like that. So
normally they would just go through you, basically.
Right.
Kind of hub and spoke.
Yeah. Normally they would do that, but now it's a conversation that has to happen. And it's been, I gotta say, it's been really fun just observing the conversations that have been happening just between them, like problem solving, coming up with solutions, things I didn't think of, so I'm learning here too. So yeah, that's been like the main change this week is kind of shifting to that sort of flow, and it's been really nice. So it's cool. What we started doing was we created a Notion database with a feature. I created a template for pages in the database. So it has like, what's the gist of the feature, what are the concerns, risks, assumptions, like you have to document those. Then you have to document the plan, like how technically do you want to accomplish this? And then you have to note any specific like side effects. So in changing this, like doing this thing, are you changing anything else? Are you affecting anything else? So I'm like forcing them to think about that up front, which is helpful. And then also at the very bottom, they can call out things that they might want to pay attention to when presenting to the client or sharing with the client's engineering team, educational opportunities, things like that. So at any point I can go at the database and look and see what's being written, leave comments, have some sort of discourse about it. So it's kind of nice to see it all in one spot. But yeah, learning project for everybody involved.
Yeah, I feel, I mean, I know I helped you that with, sorry. I know I helped you with that document a little bit, but I'd love to see the finished product there and maybe steal some ideas from it. I've been trying to, I think I'm going to be slowly accumulating these kind of techniques over the course of this project. I mean, one of the things I realized just today, we were breaking up our big ticket into like little subtasks, and one of the, we had to do database migrations. Like, shoot, everyone's going to have to, reset their databases because you can't run this migration, right? So I'm like, we're going to have to let people know. Like, that's a thing, we should communicate that ahead of time. Hey, we're merging this in. Guys, reset your databases. You're going to lose your data. Like, just little stuff like that. Like Thomas said last week about, communication, solving problems ahead of time, or whatever the quote was. I'm sorry, I butchered it. But yeah. Just trying to stay ahead of that and think even just half step ahead.
Just be proactive about it.
Proactive, that's the word. And I think having a document like that really forces you to think some of those things through. Even if you miss some, that's okay too. But
even a document in a public place too, I think that's been really helpful because we can all look at each other's stuff and help outline things. So like, for example, I can drop into a planning doc and be like, have you considered this thing? Like there's an edge case here that you didn't note here at least. So it's probably good to talk about it.
You're pairing on the planning as well.
Yeah. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, it all falls on my shoulders in terms of like making sure the quality is there and the time is there, right? Or like, timelines are there. So having it there helps me answer questions too, like make sure things are staying on task. So, they can just at me right in the document and I can just show up and be like, all right, here's your answer, whether it's design related or whatever. So it's been working pretty well. And we also, this was a really small but positive change. We had a project level Slack channel but there's, you know, the devs are in it, designers are in it, client people are in it, producers are in it. And so it's generally pretty quiet. And so we made a dev only chat with just the devs on the project, and chatter just exploded through the roof. And in like actual communication about being stuck, like that came up way faster than waiting for stand-ups and things like that. So that was a huge boost to productivity as well. But on top of that, learning sharing shot through the roof too. So I'll talk about this in a second, but I've been doing like reading in the morning, like reading a note time with my coffee instead of like jumping into tasks right away. I spend some time reading and taking notes on a thing. And so I'll just share articles in there. And so there's a few patterns that we've picked up in terms of like React specific patterns. A lot of it we picked up from like Tailwind UI, Headless UI and stuff like that. But like just those small little shares, I feel like have empowered them to like really go and make some really like composable UIs that are so much we have been working with. And now I'm looking at MRs. I'm like, this is great. Like this will work, and it's flexible, and it's good, you know. So that sort of like sharing of knowledge has definitely increased productivity. So, and then it's starting to snowball, you know. So they're sharing information and all that. So it's been good, but yeah, still busy.
Okay, yeah, Thomas, I did hear it too. I thought it was my end. Sean, you went full like remix on us for a second there. It was
Weird.
great. It was like some Daft Punk stuff.
Technology is failing us this week.
No, I think it's perfect. I think it's elevating us actually. One of the things, and this is tangential to what you're saying, but one of the things I've noticed that has been the most powerful way of communicating needs is being very specific. Okay, not just complaining, just saying, I don't know who to, like, to your example, right? I could type in chat, I don't know how to design. I could type in chat, I don't know how to design this modal, and that's not actionable, right? But if I said, hey, could someone create a Figma or a mockup or a document that explains the design considerations for this modal, right? That's an item that someone can be like, oh, that's my job. I'll do that. I'll help out with that if I have time, right? Being hyper specific, I feel like leads self to action way more often. And like I was trying to express an idea in our team, our sprint retro. God, these words, man. I just hate myself for having to say all this stuff. And I was like too vague. We were going through the feedback, and I was obviously way too vague in the feedback because someone just read it and they just kind of skipped over, like, yep, that's true. And I was actually looking to have more of a discussion around it. And so I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like, I think just really pointed, specific things like that, you do enough of those and that adds up, and that's a lot more valuable than just kind of vague, flailing, asking for help.
It's sort of like learning to filter what you're saying and not type the first thing that you want to say.
That's exactly it. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, so like Paul is saying, it's really important to ask specific questions, and he also likes to add end Slack calls and threads with, okay, so here's what we landed on. Just
Yeah,
sort of
action
like
items
yeah.
or to-dos or up next or anything like that at the bottom of your meeting notes. Takeaways.
This is why I think it's also super important to have these devs working on these planning docs, is because a lot of times when they jump straight into code, and I haven't been super specific with a prescription, they'll code the first thing comes to mind instead of
guilty.
Right. I mean, me too, you'll code the first thing that comes to mind instead of taking time to sort of think about it first. And so when forcing them to write about it first, it's natural to sort of have, okay, approach 1, approach 2. You sort of can rehash it and discuss it before it gets into, because I feel like you can have those discussions in MR review, but it's a little bit harder because you're already sort of like looking at some sort of implementation. You can get stuck there looking into it. You can fail to see a way around it. And then also if it's been a chunk of work that's already been done, you don't want to be like, oh, you have to redo this thing all over again, for some perceived gain, so
yeah.
This was something that one of my coaches was asking me to kind of like keep up with them on, is kind of breaking the habit of coding the first thing that comes to mind and making a habit of writing and thinking first, then codifying later via code. So that's been it's been working out pretty well.
You can also do the in-between thing where you can write pseudocode or write function heads or, stub out stuff or even just write a test, right? Like you're not really writing code. You're just that is very, that kind of scratches that itch of I want to write code, but let's see what that code looks like first. And that already, just raises so many questions there.
Right. Like, so pseudocoding a lot. I do this ton in Notion. I'll just make a code block and write some stuff. And so we were all kind of going over our, we were leading each other through our feature docs today. And I had done that a bunch in my Notion doc, and they looked at it, they're like, whoa, because I had like all these these components and like props and interfaces and stuff just in there. And if it's not real code, it won't run, so I can, but I had like comments like, oh yeah, after typing this interface out and like trying to use it in a component or whatever, it doesn't work that great. It sounds great in theory, but after looking at it in code, it doesn't look that great. And you've not really wasted any time in doing that in a Notion doc. So it's fun to see the mind explosion emojis in real life. Like, I never thought to do that. Like, I didn't really think to do that until I saw Paul do it one time, And he like fired up Bear, and I was like, what are you doing? And he just writes out of this code. I was like, this is genius. But yeah, so it feels like there's been a lot of positive momentum and growth in the past few weeks, which is great. And it's sort of infectious. It makes you excited to keep doing what you're doing and working on the project that you're working on, which is really important, especially for this thing that just keeps on living. They keep on extending, which is great. So we're essentially a mini startup at this point inside of Meta Lab, which is fine by me. So yeah. And I kind of mentioned earlier about like some reading and note-taking time. And so for a long while now, I don't remember how many episodes ago I mentioned, like, I wake up at the same time. I've been doing this since before like moving here, probably almost a year now, where I sort of like go to bed at the same time and I wake up at the same time. So I have more of a set schedule. And at some point I kind of fell off like reading. Like, I was reading in the morning and sort of like going through courses and things like that, and sort of fell off that at some point. But I've recently picked it back up, and I don't know, it feels different this time. And so anyway, the other night I was looking at Obsidian, and I'll drop a link to the Obsidian app really quick. I guess we've talked in the past sort of about knowledge, like second brains or like knowledge building tools, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah. Anyway, I was looking at Obsidian, and I don't know how I stumbled on it, but I stumbled on the Zettelkasten website. Here, I'll drop a link to the Wikipedia really quick. But essentially,
we're not going to spell that, but that'll be in the show notes.
It's German for I have it right here. It's German for slipbox.
Slipbox.
Yeah. So basically, Zettelkasten it's like a system for taking notes in researching, and so it's basically what we were doing with Notion databases. So you have a note. Each note has like a hierarchy assigned to it. So I've seen people do like timestamps. So there's like an order of which things are added to this system. And the notes usually contain a single topic, and you can relate notes together via tags or backlinks. Like, so you do this in note cards in the old school days. But that seems pretty common, right? You do with Notion. Notion has backlinks, tagging, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so I stumbled upon their blog more importantly before like getting into Zettelkasten itself. And I stumbled upon this blog post called "Don't Rely on a Source and Have Faith in Your Own Thoughts." And so I think I shared this link with Greg, and he kind of called me out on it, and said like you were kind of talking about this idea a few weeks ago, where basically I was saying I wish I had more, not original thoughts, but my own thoughts. Like, instead of reading stuff and taking it wholesale and sort of like, I know this now because I read it and what it said exactly is like part of my knowledge now, right? I wanted to process it on some level, I guess. So previously, like reading books and taking notes, I would read a book and I would like copy and paste a paragraph into a note and be like, okay, this is something I want to remember. But I didn't sort of do any sort of like analytical thinking or filtering or processing of the quote. It's just dropped into the note and lived there, which, that may work, but the act of taking that information and thinking about it and sort of rewriting it in your own words and thinking about it in your own words, and that's where you start to process it. It starts to become more long-term memory if you revisit it, but it also starts to become more your thoughts, the author's thoughts plus yours in a sense, right? And so from that article, it linked another article basically talking about something called the Collector's Fallacy, which, let me grab this link really quick. And so in a nutshell, the collector fallacy basically is, and I know we all do this. I do this. Like, how many of us in the chat have pin boards full of links that we've never read, or Instapaper or whatever? But the idea behind the collector's fallacy is, we're going along, we see something that we think might be useful, we might want to learn or know about, so we bookmark it, but you essentially never return to it. You never process it. You never write notes about it. It just kind of remains unprocessed. And so eventually you end up with some sort of inbox with a pile of digital links. It's like digital hoarding in a way, right? Because there's always the idea of oh, this article, this will come in handy in my job in the next year, probably. So let me bookmark it. But I'll never, even when it does come up, I won't go back and look for the bookmark, right?
You've already forgotten that you had the bookmark at that point.
You've already forgotten that you had the bookmark. So Thomas is saying, I'm in this picture and I don't like it. Yeah, totally, 100% me. So, yeah, like Paul was saying, I always forget to search my pin board. Same, Paul. I have tons and tons and tons of stuff in my pin board, and I just never go back and look at it. So, yeah, I was like, all right, well, let me try this approach then. I felt really seen, like someone shined a flashlight. I'm sitting in bed, and then I look like a gargoyle, right? Like one of those memes. And so Zettelkasten itself has all these, yeah, Rockwell is pointing a light at me. Zettelkasten has all these rules that you can follow, a note should be a single topic, your knowledge on a topic should be in one spot, and you link things through tags and all this stuff. But I was like, all right, well, what if I just start taking notes instead of bookmarks, skip a step, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been very hard for me to do. I've been doing this for a couple of weeks now, so I think I'm close to habit territory, hopefully. But so instead of the dogs are barking now. I'm sure you can hear them.
We hear them, yeah.
Intermission. Jamie's about to deal with these pups.
I'll come over and deal with them once.
You could sneeze, and then a blade of grass on the other side of the yard will move, and they'll be like, excuse me, and they'll start barking. Not at the sneeze, but the blade of grass moving the other way.
Excuse me.
The ears will go up and be like, how dare you? Yeah, I think someone just pulled in next door or whatever. But so I'm approaching 2-week territory. I think it's starting to become habit. And so what I'm doing is, and it's really hard, but I subscribe to all the Cooper Press newsletters. I just have them in RSS feed. So basically I have, oh, bless you. Basically I have an RSS feed of things that I want to care about. And when something new pops in there, what I'll do is I'll open it up and I'll look for something that's useful to me now, or that's interesting to me now, maybe is more importantly. And I'll just crack open a note. And so I'll read, and one of the things that I'm not letting myself do is copy and paste. So I won't copy and paste from an article to my note. I will paraphrase it or write it.
Why do that? You can just go over to Medium and just highlight it and post it to Twitter like a million other people did.
Right. And so what I do is, if I have a note for a topic like React or React Query or whatever, I keep a source, a source list, links to things at the bottom. And if I feel like I haven't really completed my thoughts on it by the time I have to end, I tag it as to process. And so either at the end of the night or the next morning, I'll load up Obsidian. I tried to say Insomnia, but I'll load up Obsidian. I'll filter for to process, and I'll grab one of the ones that I've started, and I'll try to finish it. finish it being like, again, complete thought. Not that I've documented entirety of React Query, but the thing I was trying to think about or learn about React Query has sort of complete thought that I wrote. So that's been working really, really well for me. And the knowledge like sharing that I talked about earlier with the team isn't because I happen to be like finding more links. It's because I happen to be internalizing the information. And so I'm able to communicate what I'm trying to communicate, or, you know, communicate the pattern or why the pattern exists or some nuances of the pattern. And then I can supplement with additional reading if it needs to. So it went from knowledge sharing went from being, oh, read this article whenever you have spare time. They're not going to do that.
No.
They might bookmark it and never go read it, right?
But and thus the cycle continues, right?
If you can drop a paragraph or two in the chat that actually explains it, they'll read it right then. You know, they'll look at the pattern right then. And so I think that's been really helpful in sort of the knowledge building aspect of sharing information between the team.
And when you're talking about these documents or these articles, are these primary technical things, or are they sort of higher level, I don't know, work stuff?
So far, it's all been technical, but
okay.
But eventually I want to branch out of that. So
like, could you even just like pin up a, I don't know, documentation for some obscure API of some framework you use, and like, could that be your thing?
Yeah. So one of the blog posts I've been wanting to write, I don't even have a blog, okay? But one of the things I've been wanting to write is everything I know about building a web app. So like things that are common amongst all of them, right? So if you need to learn how to make an API, like you need to learn about cores, like you were talking about earlier, maybe before we started recording, but like, how do you explain to someone what cores is, you know? Talking about headers, talking about, you know, different types of API designs, talking about middleware, talking about all the different concepts like that every sort of web app has, right? So I just want to sit down and write about, okay, what are all the nouns that I know about, and how much can I say about them, like for myself, really, you know?
Hey, Sean.
So, yeah.
Why don't you blog about it?
I don't have one. This is my blog, audio blog. But yeah, so I guess more about Obsidian. I don't think that it's only because Obsidian that is sticking, but I do like Obsidian quite a bit. So Obsidian basically... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, tell us about it, because I know the bare minimum, the surface details.
So one critique I have, like I think many people have about Notion, is that it gets slower the more stuff you add to it and the deeper you go, right? It just slows down. So there's that. And the other part of it is, like, you know, you can export your data, but it all lives in Notion databases and views and stuff. So Obsidian, basically you create a vault, and a vault just holds a bunch of markdown files. Its vault basically has, you know, a hidden like .obsidian folder that has some metadata in it, but you create a vault. It can be any folder. You can have multiple vaults, as many vaults as you want. You can even like sync a vault via Dropbox or iCloud. I am actually using iCloud for it. Or you could pay them $5 a month for Obsidian's sake if you want to use that.
Can you point it at Git or version control?
I think so. I think there's a plugin. So Obsidian is pretty expansive. Like the more you look at it, there's like just more stuff. So it's basically an Electron app, but it has a bunch of plugins you can add to it. So it has a Zettelkasten plugin where it'll like prefix all of your notes with the timestamp, for example. It supports, like, it's markdown based. It supports backlinking or linking to other documents that you have. It also has, you know, tags, so you can tag things, of course. And then it has an interesting tag view where you use the backlinks and tags, and it sort of gives you a mental like map, or like a web, like a node map of how your ideas are interconnected, which I thought was interesting. I don't necessarily use that, but that was one of the selling points of Zettelkasten, is they're like, well, if you do things consistently enough, you can sort of use it as a system to see how your ideas interact with each other, or, you know, where the intersections are. But the other side of Obsidian is it's super customizable. You can create plugins for it. There's thousands of community plugins that people have created. So I use a Vim mode in it. I'm just comfortable in that.
Of course.
That's one thing I always wish I had for Notion. Again, it's just in my fingers at this point, so it's what I like writing with. So that's one thing that actually makes it more accessible for me for writing, is I'm comfortable writing in that way, because I write code like that all day long, or have been, you know, in the past. You can theme it. There's all these other things. There's plugins for like, renaming and creating new tags and managing your tags and all that stuff. So basically anything you want to do with it. There's like calendar views for it. There's even like a space repetition plugin that will like look at the timestamp of a created note, and it will like bring notes up to your memory. Like, hey, refresh this one. Hey, refresh this one. And you can like tell it, yeah, I did remember this. So then instead of 7 days, it'll remind you of 14 days, for example, right? Space repetition. So people are going wild with this thing, just building stuff for it, which is pretty cool. But for me, I use it because just markdown files in iCloud and Vim writing experience. I don't know why that helps it stick for me, but maybe there's less bells and whistles in like tables and charts and diagrams like in Notion. But it seems to be have just enough features to make me feel productive and make it feel nice using, but not enough for me to be like losing time in procrastinating essentially.
Do you ever use Tiddlywiki?
No. I feel like I've heard of this though.
I don't know. It might still be a thing. It was this single file wiki that you could download. It's just an HTML file, but somehow it was able to persist itself to disk. So you could do all this. You could make like a wiki like this, but it would you just literally hit save, and somehow it would write itself out to disk, and you could just load it up at any point. Just a freaking HTML file. It was pretty amazing. Full markup and linking and indexes and all the features you expect. But
you know what? I know about this because I saw Joe Armstrong, rest in peace, tweeting about it at one point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just get that kind of vibe when I start to see people like putting links in double square brackets. I'm like, okay, right. we're on full wiki syntax here.
So yeah, I'm not like going full Zettelkasten in that way. I think here are the ideas of like why I think it sticks for me, or like why this is important for me. Number one, like the collector's fallacy led me to that path, or like led me to the realization like, yeah, I'm just hoarding stuff that I don't really look at. And so it's really, I haven't learned it. So it kind of gives you, I guess, like bookmarking all these React articles gave me a false sense of knowledge in a sense, right? Like I know where to find them. So in a way I know that information, but that's not true. Because the more junk you add, the harder it becomes to find, right? And the second thing was the idea that I was talking about, where I want to add some level of processing or me to the things that I'm learning, instead of just taking what other people are writing about wholesale. I want to apply my knowledge, and there's again, we'll have the links in the show notes and stuff, but there's some interesting discussions in the comments on those posts where people are talking about just thoughts, I guess, original thoughts, things like that. But yeah, so it kind of like brought me to that realization where like, okay, well, it gave me a term maybe to apply to what I was feeling, like this thing that I was struggling with. And so once I started Googling that, or, like jumping into the Zettelkasten's forum and reading more about it, I was like, okay, there are a lot of people like this, and this is one tool that they use to combat it. So like, and I actually took a note on Collector's Fallacy, and the big highlight that I have in here is the only way to really combat the Collector's Fallacy is you have to read, you have to assimilate, you have to rinse, and you have to repeat. That's it. It's like it's a 3-step process: read, assimilate, do it again. So that doesn't sound so hard, right? That doesn't sound so intense to me. But
well, what's nice about it is teaching it or explaining it to someone that counts. Like that's an iteration of that cycle, right? You're having to digest it and explain it like I'm 5 or something. Putting it in air quotes there. Being able to explain something simply means that shows that you understand it. You have mastery of it, and that's I think that's also valuable too. You're not writing it down, but it's another loop.
So some other angles I was thinking about were I would bookmark things and leave it there because it made me feel more secure, like I could find it easier later, which maybe isn't the case when you reach a certain amount of material. in a pinboard, right? Unless you're totally on top of your tagging, it's really not that different from searching Google. Like if you put the right tag words together, you'll find it there too. So that feeling of like, I need to have this because I want to be able to find it later, that argument sort of goes away on some level, right? Like you can say, oh, what if Google's down? Like when do they go down? What if, I don't know, there's a bunch of what ifs you could apply to this scenario, but really at the end of the day, unless you have your thoughts written down somewhere, then, you know, you could always go back and find it later. You don't have to store this stuff. But in the act of storing it, it makes the act of like actually reading it later and taking this notes sort of farther away, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people like, just storing their notes at the end of the school year or something, but I kept a bunch of mine, you know? I was just so proud of all the work that I put in. And all of my notes from high school and college were all handwritten. You know, I didn't type notes at all, basically ever. Because I think largely because it was mostly math. So, like, it's just way faster to write than it is to figure out the LaTeX notation for it. But, like, I found that handwriting in general helped me. I think it was more valuable for me than just typing, like, in terms of remembering things. Even though my handwriting's garbage, like, who knows if I could read it again, but
yeah,
it's another discussion. But yeah, I did feel kind of proud of those notes because it, like you said, it was sort of your, I don't know, interpretation of it. You kind of knew where things were. It was laid out, how you think. You know, you could break things up into sections, little doodles, add some character. I would keep tallies in the corner every time some teachers have something that they just say over and over again, so I keep a tally in the corner, like whenever the teacher said that one phrase.
Right. I think actually one of the things that Zettelkasten says is it's better to take notes on paper first and then transfer them to your library later. So you effectively scan them at some point, right? But one of my actual favorite quotes from the Collector's Fallacy thing was this is the first step to conquer Collector's Fallacy. To realize that having a text at hand does nothing to increase your knowledge. We have to work with it instead. Reading alone won't suffice. We have to create notes to create real sustainable knowledge, which, you know, I agree with, especially because I have a pinboard full of React things, and up until 6 months ago, I didn't know crap about it. I knew enough to build like a thing, but through Googling, but you know what I mean? I didn't ever go back to the pinboard, so.
Now, I made the joke about medium.com and highlighting before, but I've gotten in the habit now of basically destroying any technical book I get. I always wanted to keep things pristine. I don't know why. Like, they always just go out of date. I'm going to throw them away because these things are very time limited. So now whenever I get a technical book, I'm reading it with a highlighter. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much value that adds, but I like that a lot. It forces me to... It's kind of halfway there. It's not taking notes, but it's at least accentuating things that you think are important.
You're spending more time with it, right? And you're making the decision of which things to highlight, and you're thinking about them more, I think, yeah. Mm-hmm. Notes would be in a step further, writing in the margins maybe, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's been a sustainable habit for me now. So the hardest thing for me to do was default from bookmarking everything in a Peter Cooper newsletter coming in, and I subscribed to like 7 of them. The hard thing was for me just to let it pass by. And I would scan for like, what's the one thing here I want to know now that I can afford to take notes on, you know?
Well, that was, this reminds me, you're talking about RSS. This reminds me of sort of my transition from RSS feeds, right? Using Google Reader and, I don't know, any of the RSS things to like just accumulating so much, and the volume was so great that it was just undigestible. Mm-hmm. And then that was sort of the rise of like Dig and Pop URLs and Reddit and like those kind of aggregators that take the things that are important. And it's such an easier list of things to scroll through. And that was kind of that transition for me, you know, and now it's just funny to see you go full circle back to RSS again, but being selective about it, right?
Yeah, same for me. So like Shy Ryan in the chat saying they just transitioned back to RSS.
Making a comeback.
Yeah.
I love it.
Making a comeback, yeah.
All right.
Well, it's funny because we talk about that, and then I start sharing links or talking about this thing, and then my devs ask me where I learned it, and I say, oh, this resource, I have an RSS feed, and then they're like, oh, let me see your links. And so one of my devs actually has a folder, an RSS reader of things that I send to her. Like, this is
okay.
Here's a blog you should pay attention to. Here's a thing that writes about something you should probably know for this project, or, what you're doing even at MetaLab. So, there's like a Sean's links section in there, which I thought was funny. But
we could totally do that. We could totally have an RSS feed that just sucks every link out of our show notes and puts it on a feed.
Yeah, we could. We have the technology. Yeah, but I don't know. For whatever reason, like this feels sustainable to me because it doesn't feel like work when I'm doing it. It feels relaxing. And I think that's what keeps me coming back to it. If I feel like I have to peel myself out of my room in the morning to go sit down and watch videos or sit down and type or something like that, I just pull my iPad up. I guess I talked about Obsidian. Obsidian doesn't have iOS apps. I think they're in closed beta, but I just use IA Writer and I open up a specific note that I want to write on, just in IA Writer because my notes are in iCloud. So the tooling is much simpler on the iOS stuff. So
it's like a markdown editor.
Yeah, Markdown. Any Markdown editor. There's actually, I'll put a couple of links in the show notes. There's a couple of good ones. There's some really good ones on iOS now that are like really nice. So it's just easy. It's not a whole thing. I don't have to go to the office. I don't have to open the laptop up and sit up. I can write with the pencil if I want to and have it translate that to text and edit it later. I can paraphrase stuff and edit it later. It's just. It's just easy. I don't know. It's relaxing and easy, so it gives me a sense of calmness when I'm doing this. So
that's great, man. Well, a couple weeks in the habit, a couple more weeks, keep it up.
Yeah.
It'd be cool if you could take the screens out of the equation entirely, right? That would be like the ultimate end goal, right?
It'd be
Some
cool.
Even just an e-ink something, but you can't. Yeah, the whole typing thing kind of gets you. You can type faster, you can write, I assume, and you probably want that. But
so that's the thing. I'm not concerned with how fast I can type it down. I'm
Right,
more concerned with I'm more concerned with that I write. Period. That I write something down. Period.
You know what you could do? You could get one of those cross. What are those called? Someone help me out here. Those cross something pen. Cross pad.
So I guess what you could do is if you're doing books, you could do a Kindle plus a notepad, and then digitize it later, because I suppose the act of digitizing your note isn't necessarily part of the knowledge process. If you've already captured it in your notepad form, then you could somehow digitize it faster.
I don't think they make this product anymore, but this is an amazing product made by a Cross Pen Company. You write on paper, but it digitizes it as well.
Compatible with Windows 95, 98, NT
yeah,
based PCs.
I swear they have newer versions of this, but maybe they don't.
Yeah.
It was so cool. It had this special paper that had this random, very light pattern of random dots on it. So that way when you're writing with the pen, it actually knew where it was on the page just based off of looking at the dots. It was incredible. It was incredible.
Yeah, Thomas has a remarkable tablet. They seem really interesting, but I already have an iPad, so I'll just keep using that. It would be really cool to have an e-ink style thing that I could use, though.
Yeah, Shy Ryan, that's what I'm talking about. That was peak for those. We have this professor who was just all about it. This is the future. It's the coolest thing ever.
That's funny.
He also made us write assembly for microcontrollers, so he's not really a reliable source, but yeah, I think that's all I really had for this week was, I'm glad that we waited a week to talk about it, because I was wondering if it would continue to be stress-free in doing it, and it has been. So it feels good to be able to
talk about something where it's feels like more like a habit. I guess 2 weeks isn't really enough, but it's better than I started this 2 days ago and everyone should do it. Fad.
Before we wrap up here, we got one more shout out. You want to do this, Sean?
Do what?
The Manning.
Oh, yeah. Eric, friend of the show, Eric.
Friend of the show, Eric.
Yeah, so, Eric, we had him on a few weeks ago talking about his book, Rocking Simplicity. And back then it was still in early access, but it's been officially released. So now it's fully done and out there, and people can buy paper versions of it.
Yep. And we have I think we have a promo code that's still active for Manning Books. We'll put a link to that in the show notes.
I'll pop it out here too, just because they keep telling me to use it.
Yeah, please use it.
But yeah, so this link that we just shared, I should share it on all destinations though. Here we go. This should be good for, I believe it was 30% off any Manning product, they said.
I think that is correct.
Yeah, this one right here. If you're just listening, it's in the show notes. But if you're watching the video, it's on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no indication that the link does anything, but
it sets a little cookie in there. But yeah, so that if you use that link, they know that people that like DNC sent you, which is cool. But yeah, the book is fully available now. So congrats, Eric.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome news. The way he made yes, the book was pretty much done when we read it, but the way he described the process made it seem like it was going to take a lot longer. So
yeah,
that's awesome that they were able to get it out so quickly.
Yeah, I've been meaning to order the physical copy anyway, so I could just do that right now.
I've been thinking about it a lot, and going back to Dockyard, like, can I introduce stratified design into this to this code base? I'm like, maybe in my own little corner I'll like do it. I don't know. I got big ideas and a small commit history.
Right. Oh, let me use my own link here. These dadgum dogs. They're not protecting anyone. Don't let them fool you.
They protected us from having to talk about TypeScript.
We can talk about that if that's what you want to talk about.
Mm-mm.
I can talk about that for a good bit.
No, thank you.
In fact, I converted a project to TypeScript today. Finally, our UI kit is actually TypeScript friendly. It's all JS still, but now you can author a TypeScript file in it.
Well, I said, well.
Sorry, I'm purchasing a book currently.
Oh my God. While Sean's busy saving 30% on Manning, we'd love to hear your feedback about Zeitgeist. What was it called? Zettelkasten. Note-taking techniques, note-taking tools, things that have worked for you, things that haven't worked for you. Let us know. We're on Twitter. DNCcast is our name. Sean is Sean Washbot. I'm Shrockwell, and all these myriad of links will be available on our show notes. DNC.show. We're posting them there. They're also in the description for your RSS feed. Really simple syndication, Sean. It's really simple. It's making a comeback. Google Reader. Rise from the dead once again.
Google Reader.
And our show notes will be in there.
I just used the Reader app.
2 E's, right?
REEDER, yep.
Like the plant. Like the grass.
Yes.
Like the thing you put in a clarinet.
Yep. Those gross things.
We're also streaming on Twitch every Thursday, 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern, twitch.tv/DNCcast. We're actually not just on Twitch now. We're on Periscope. What's our Periscope handle? DNCcast as well.
Yeah, just DNCcast.
And we're on the YouTubes. It just says does not compute. So that's cool. And of course, we got the Discord. We love the Discord. I'm always roping people into Discord. You should come be roped into it too. We'll put a link into that.
Yeah, you should definitely join the Discord.
We Yeah. Friend of the Discord, Mark, from whom I bought some 3D printed retro gadgets a couple months ago, is hanging out with us in there. He's making cool products. He's got a bevy of 3D printers. He's selling them on eBay and making a little side dough doing that.
Oh, nice.
And also recently featured in a Lazy Gaming Reviews video. His stuff has been on there in the past, but he actually got a shout out on LGR, which gets a lot of views, which is pretty exciting because I love LGR and it's cool to see someone I know up there. So lots of cool people like that making stuff in the Discord. Come on by. We're internet famous.
Internet famous. And I think last but not least is just thanking everybody for hanging around, hanging out with us, chatting with us, right? I don't think we skipped anything. Or you said it all right, so.
You were too busy spending your
I was
hard-earned cash.
verifying the coupon, okay? And so the link that we provide in the show notes should work, but just in case it doesn't work, we do have an actual coupon code you can apply at checkout, and it's PodNoCompute21. So that should be good for, I'm looking at the email right now. It should be good for 35% off anything in matting, and it says all formats in parentheses. So
Can we just rename the show Pod No Compute?
Yeah. Yeah. So also I'm buying Eric's book right now. And it's already on sale, so it won't stack on a book that's already on sale.
Boo.
FYI. But
You don't get 30% off the sale price.
The book is it's like it was hold on, let me look. It's the
Some
physical copy is $50, but it's on sale for $32.49 right now.
Some poor developer had to write that logic. Coupon codes don't stack with or promos don't stack with sales.
Paul, how did it feel to write that logic for DK?
What's the display price versus the actual price?
Because we wrote all that from scratch. Yeah. So anyway, PodNoCompute21 on Manning should give you 35% off. Making sure people save that money. But yeah. Thanks to everybody for hanging around and chatting, and it's one of the highlights of the week, definitely. So hopefully the content is still useful. Feel free to suggest topics.
What he said. What
Yeah.
she said, Sean.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess I'll talk to you next week. Good luck.
So
Good luck with your sprints.
my legs are tired. Wait, no, hold on. It's like an airplane joke. My arms are tired. I flew in here from Cincinnati. Boy, are my arms tired. So I could say, I just finished sprint 1. Boy, are my legs tired. I got there eventually, Sean.
We need a soundboard. Crickets in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Oh, wait,
Well,
hold on. We can do that. Whoops. Nope.
the groan. Chat's groaning. Are you checking right now, Paul? What are you talking about? I swear that you made it, Paul. I'm pretty sure it was you, most of the coupon stuff. Oh, I see. Yeah, crickets. All right, I'm going to shut off the recording now.
Bye.
See ya. Boom, boom.
Should we keep recording or is it too late? Did you already stop?
I stopped it.
We're out of sync now. All right.
Too late.
In case
Too
people
bad.
are not aware, if you don't make it, you probably don't listen to the whole end of the show and the outro music that's obscenely loud. But sometimes I stick a little funny quotes at the end if there's something funny that gets cut. Usually something stupid that I've said that I regret. I'll put it at the end. So if anyone ever makes it that far,
That you regret.
it's not worth keeping in the regular show.
I'm just waiting for-
Mikhail did that originally, and I stole that technique, but it's a good one.
I'm just waiting for someone to beat me in an argument at MetaLab by bringing up like audio or a quote from me from like 6 years ago.
Oh no! Thank you, Sultan.
Joe Sims. I forgot about old Joe Sims. Union and Fifth, yeah.
Sultan is a true super fan. Yeah, that's a real thing. Is I have such a hard time. I only listen to a very small handful, and I have trouble keeping up. Mostly because they're like 2.5 hours, but you know.
I only listen when I'm doing like stuff outside.
Yeah, that's actually my motivator to do stuff outside. Is I get to listen to my shows now. Yeah, or we're going on a run, going on a sprint.
Listen on my run, yeah. Thomas is the one person that leaves me feedback on my workouts.
Awesome, Thomas.
I leave him feedback on his workouts.
I'm not going outside today. I was like 40 degrees. This is bullshit.
It was like 45 degrees here. There's
yeah?
no snow. It's so cold. I have a small heater that sits on my desk and blows up my knuckles.
Always listening to podcasts. I can. That's a special skill to be able to listen to spoken word while you're writing code or prose or anything.
I can't do that.
No, me neither. Although I did discover today that, so I wear these headphones when I'm on my, never-ending calls. I discovered that I can play Spotify quietly in the background, and it's actually kind of nice. Just put it at like 25% volume.
Oh, I do that all the time. Unless I'm wearing Bluetooth headphones, because then the audio sucks. But yeah, I use Sound Source to drop the audio a little bit.
Listens to music while reading books.
But I still get a little offended when we jump on a company-wide call and someone just starts playing music because it's quiet.
That's obnoxious. I'm sorry, but that is
just like elevator music.
It's like funny if it's maybe like a one-time thing or
every time.
If it's short, but if it's every time, it's forced.
For like 5 minutes, as 150 people like trickle into
No, that's no good. No good.
Yeah.
Especially because it's all compressed and like echo cancellation, noise reduction.
It sounded pretty okay. I just appreciated the silence.
Speaking of noise reduction, I have not yet received the shipping notification for my new keyboard. But I'm waiting anxiously.
Oh, I don't think we talked about that yet.
Oh, remix. Sean Wash dropping the beats.
Yeah, Paul knows the alternative to music is not silence. It's people asking, why is it so quiet in here? Over and over again.
Oh, small talk, yeah. Might somehow be worse, actually. Small talk. That's funny, Sultan. I had a thing happen today. Oh no, God, this is so embarrassing. I should have done this, but so we were in our stand up, and I clicked over at someone. It was my turn. I clicked over to the tab to unmute myself, and I accidentally closed the tab. It's like, Rockwell, what are you up to? And then I just immediately dropped from the call.
Yeah.
And then so it's like shit. So I opened the tab, jump back in, and no one's talking yet. So I'm like, okay, they're just waiting for me to come back or something. So I give my whole spiel. And then I realized that I have no audio at all, that I was completely talking over someone else the entire time. And I can see everyone laughing, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't hear anything. And so I came back in again, and what had happened, I don't know what happened, but what everyone else heard was me talking over my teammate in the same, my partner in this. And we were just saying the exact same thing. So they got it in stereo, I guess. Oh, man. Felt real.
Wow, Thomas. I had a meeting this week that was so bad, my lead sent out a formal apology email after. What?
It sounds like story time, but...
That's wild. Oh, man.
We had a recent thing that happened with that in our HR. we did a little video thing a couple weeks ago with one of the like local clubs, and we did this presentation for his local club about one of the contests we did or whatever, the big contest I was talking about. And basically we talked for an hour and then spent the next 2 hours just basically being attacked by like the people like trying to poke holes in like remote ham radio is terrible, or doing it remotely, and all these technical issues and latency. And they had recordings of us on the air that they were playing back, like some kind of weirdo conspiracy guys. And like, it was freaking embarrassing. It was so bad that, like you said, Thomas, like they had to, like the club head was like apologizing to us. It was absurd. But yeah, that's the thing. It's just when those things devolve. Bullet journal. I think you were talking about this, Sean, right?
Well,
I've heard of this.
Yeah, I've looked at it a little bit, but all of the when I was looking at Notion or looking at bullet journal, I was using Notion, and there's a bunch of like bullet journal templates that they're all kind of hacky.
I think it's designed to be like a paper with like margins, right? Like you do, I forget how you lay it out. It's like 50-50 or I don't know. They taught us how to do it at some point. I don't remember. Paul, it was us, a couple of us guys from RHR giving a presentation to a local ham radio club during their like monthly meeting or whatever, which is all remote obviously right now. It was a mess.
My favorites are watching Jamie. Like, there's a bunch of online conferences going on for environmental and legal stuff, and so she'll have it on TV or whatever, or she'll have it on your computer, and just watching people like in between intermissions, like they'll put the intermission screen up, but everyone's still mic'd up, and they'll just be eating, like chomping food into the microphone or like having conversations, and someone will be like, just a reminder that you were all still live on the air. It happens all the time.
Excuse me. That's the one thing that's really good about Dockyard. Most people like their cameras off. I like mine on, but
Really?
I just don't care. But
100% opposite of Metal Lab.
well, most people have their cameras off and are very, very, very good about muting, like exceptionally good, which I just love and appreciate.
Yeah, people are pretty good at muting at Metal Lab too, but we don't do cameras off.
I might eventually just go to cameras off, except when I'm talking or like presenting something.
I don't really mind either way, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if I want to have my camera off, would I be doing this, standing here doing this?
Well, I think part of the camera policy is that everyone has to show their pets on every call. So
I think that happens here. Regardless.
Everyone's just looking in the background for like, where's the dog at? Go get Watson. Go get Mako. Go get whoever. Although our producer now is a hamster, her one pet. So like, go get the hamster. It's called Tiny. Yeah, 100% for Metal Lab too. Like, most of them are used to being in an office, or a lot of the people I work with used to work in the office directly. So
yeah, no one is. Yeah,
it is funny because now I have a virtual background. My virtual background is of the Metal Lab office, and so now people are like, "Oh, my desk is right there."
That's great.
Yeah, I've never been there. They're like, "We know you've never been here." I'm like, "I'm here right now. What are you talking about?"
Thomas is right. You do sound like a good boss, Sean. I want to call that out from before.
Well, really, I just want to write some more code. And so if they're doing the planning, I'm not doing the planning.
Oh,
so
I see.
What I didn't realize was that it just does make my job harder, but I can still write more code.
It's funny.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, so we've had a hard time hiring leads, right? I think like the web lead spot is very specific in like they're looking for someone that has a lot of front end experience, back end experience, but also like planning experience. So it's kind of hard to find all of those. To be honest, when I was interviewing, I didn't have to do the planning test. It didn't exist. So I don't know how I would have done on it, to be completely honest. So I think I got lucky. But yeah, it's really what they're looking for is like super, super rare. So it's really hard. So it's like, why not, if people are willing internally, why not take the time to like change your project around a little bit if it still works to, teach them the learning stuff that's harder to get access to.
You're a triple threat, Sean.
It's funny because I don't think any of them are watching. It's not necessarily a bad thing to say, but it's funny that I think that like neither of them, like they knew that the leads do a lot of work, but I think that they weren't really like aware of how much actually work goes into writing in Jira stuff and
that's
all
what
these.
I was talking about last week, like seeing those people sling stuff around.
Right. So I'm like, the 10-minute calendar notification goes on like, oh, we have our internal planning meeting in 10 minutes. And one of them was like, oh crap, I didn't like write my thing yet. I was like, hey, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Cause spoiler alert, I do mine mostly 15 minutes before the calls anyway. So, it's just funny, like watching them experience what I experienced a lot, just coming into MetaLab. So yeah, it's funny. Just making sure like they feel, I keep saying like, hey, if you don't feel comfortable or you start to feel overwhelmed, that's counterintuitive. So let me know if you feel overwhelmed and we can change it up. But everyone else is just organizing themselves. That sounds like some Lord of the Flies stuff happening. It's a mess. That's a bummer.
Yeah, at Dockyard they've given us, we have these high level like, the whole tickets and things, everything's all planned out. But they said within your own lane, they call it, we have autonomy to sort of organize ourselves. So that's kind of nice, but trying to keep that same outer structure, but internally we can kind of do what we need to do. Because not everything always lines up with things that we need to do, I guess.
Yeah. It's going to be like the features we've been working on now aren't that bad. It's going to be more interesting when we start working on the second and third properties that they want us to work on. Because then we already have 2 properties. So then we'll have, 3 or 4 separate projects that are loosely coupled flying around. So that'll be interesting. I think someone between sea levels and yeah, for sure. Oh, that's right. Ludum Dares this weekend. I forgot about that.
Oh.
Are you guys going to be like streaming any of it or just pumping out some work?
Should we give them the login to the channel?
Yeah, that could work. If that's something you guys are interested in, anyway. That'd be cool.
Discord's a good idea too.
Ow! Why? Yeah, it's a whole thing. I don't know, Kid Club does it all the time. It's like 40, 50 people watching him too.
Jesus. It's when I make the most typos, most mistakes, and someone's looking over my shoulder. Butterfly keyboard's not helping. What?
I did actually resume my side project work. I've been doing it in the mornings after my reading and note time.
When do you get up, dude?
Usually 6.
I need to start doing that.
I just wake up at that time. I'm usually tired when I wake up at that time, but I'm awake. Yeah, so I usually do a little bit of. Sometimes I interchange. Like, one day, like this morning, I didn't really do much note taking. I did some. I had some inspiration to work on this thing, so I worked on that instead. But tomorrow, I imagine it'll be more coffee and notes. Also, it was really cold, and I like to drink coffee while sitting in the sun if I can, just sitting outside. So there was no sun today, so I went down into the office by my heater. Yeah, you don't even want to. It's a whole thing. I think it would probably be even worse if it was near a situation where it was sort of, like necessary through a lack of someone else doing something. Like someone else found out dropping the ball, so you're having to be required to step in and do it. Thomas, I don't. But there are plugins that you can install that order it for you, so that could remove that problem from your space.
I have some opinions, but I have to think about them. I tend to do... I try to group all the Flexbox nonsense together, and I usually put that on the front, especially if it's like a container flex thing, display, class equals flex. I'll put that at the front almost always, so I know that everything in that is Flexbox. And then I'll do usually justify item center, or whatever the two things are. Item center, justify between. And then I don't know. I don't know if I have a specific thing of margins versus padding. I think I'd probably put margins first, then padding. Font stuff, color stuff. I don't know. I don't really care about order as long as I group the similar things together, I guess.
Hey, Thomas,
really good answer.
This is the thing I was talking about.
Headwind. Very good.
Yeah.
We're using Tailwind on our dockyard project.
That's awesome.
Which is awesome. Yeah. And the designer, she was like so happy. She's like, oh my God. And what's cool was the guy the person who came up with all the colors and stuff, he used the same naming conventions and same thing. So it's going to be a big config file, but, and I guess there's an option in Tailwind to, when it's built, it like will generate the whole config file for you or something. It outputs something where it like outputs everything, so you can use it as a reference, instead of just having it be like implicitly behind the scenes, which I thought was cool.
WebStorm does that as well, so you wouldn't need the separate build option. It sounds like you might just be compiling it to a CSS file and then using the editor to reference it that way.
It might have been what it was. I didn't look too closely, but it is. Stop it, Jess. Can you call him?
What do you plug in, Sultan? Shameless plug.
Go.
Cat's been banned. Oh, plug in WebStorm? Yeah. I did some bash scripting today, too. That was fun.
Whatever, it's fine.
I was saying that I did some bash scripting today. That was fun.
What?
And having to occasionally relink my projects using npm link, and sometimes for the UI kit, and sometimes it gets stuck, and I have to like do this whole thing where I delete node modules, delete dist, reinstall, relink, go to the other project, uninstall the dependency, reinstall the dependency, relink it. It's a whole thing. So now I just have a bash script that does it. And I added it as an external thing for WebStorm, so I could, in either the project, I just do control resync and enter, and it'll just do it.
Smart.
Yeah, it just makes me so mad every time. Like, you gotta be kidding me. I don't know what happens technically, but it happens a lot.
I think this might be a show topic. Maybe not, but I might have given up on IntelliJ for at least for Elixir work.
Yeah, I can see that.
Literally everyone at Docker uses VS Code, and it just seems like Elixir LS support is just so good. Like
Elixir LS is really good.
You know, appreciate Luke for all stuff he's doing, but like, man, the VS Code stuff just works really well.
The IntelliJ stuff is very for Elixir is very opinionated.
Yes, that is the word. That is the word.
And they are mostly not my opinions. So.
But my muscle memory is already broken now. Like I have to relearn all of VS Code stuff. Or
no, just install the IntelliJ key map in VS Code.
And
it's better anyway.
How far I want to go down that road.
It's better anyway. Now I'm looking for other books that I want to buy too. If there's any in here that I want to, I don't know. I should probably buy data-oriented programming. Hint,
Share
hint.
screen. Share your screen, bro.
Hint, hint.
When you scrolling through.
Oh, right. I can do this. Share. I think it's this. Oh, you can do individual Brave tabs too. It's even better. Bop. So, yeah, this book seems interesting. But I'm looking to see if there's any other like physical books that I might want to order. I don't really like ordering physical books that often. Meeps. Okay. So
Meep meep.
So it went straight to like 2015? Oh, 2015 to present. I see.
But it's oh
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes some more sense. Graphs and networks. Yeah, I have no idea what I actually would want to get. The joy of JavaScript. I was trying to get a zoom in on
Robin
hooked on metaprogramming. Oh no.
No, object.prototype, no.
Continuing on.
The sacred texts.
Sync your text, yeah.
I
Yeah, I don't know.
I got to do a fun meta programming project in Elixir and side project. Just because I could.
Modern Fortran. It's probably safe enough to buy that book.
Dude,
Physical
I actually
copy.
I had to go splunky through some Fortran 2 the other week.
For
That was
what?
fun. If you must ask. Geez, where do you begin with this? I'm working on this new feature for remote ham radio that basically emulates what the crappy Windows software does for a certain thing. And the crappy Windows software is very heavily written in Fortran. Like, because it's a lot of numerical computation written by this, like, Yale physics professor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he literally wrote this whole thing. And all of the number crunching is in Fortran. And so it's open source, so I had to go digging through it to try to figure out. He had a hashing function in there, right? Just a simple turn a string into a hash, but he implemented himself in Fortran, and I was trying to figure out how to freaking re-implement it in literally anything else. I did not succeed, but it ended up by not needing it anyway, so...
Would you say that Fortran is a brown language or a green language then?
You know, I did not have the time to look through our links channel today, but I did see that. Links.
It's actually pretty interesting.
Green versus
article.
brown. What does this mean?
How do I change? Oh, I can just keep sharing more tabs. No, I can't. Share screen. Brave tab. I might sneeze, and I'm trying not to get into the microphone. What's the gist of this article? It's talking about the Stack Overflow survey for most dreaded and most loved programming languages, and how the context for each one where you actually had to have used it extensively over the past year. It wasn't just something you heard about to be able to like say you loved it or hated it.
Mm-hmm.
So the top 15 dreaded were VBA, Objective-C, Perl Assembly, C, PHP, Ruby, C++, Ruby. Interesting. Yeah, all these. HTML. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. And top 15 loved were Rust, TypeScript, Python, Kotlin, Go, Julia, Dart,
Wait,
C#.
hold on.
Blah, blah,
Objective-C.
blah. People hate it.
Objective-C is the future, Sean.
I don't know. People hate it. So there's a pattern in the list. What can you
I literally
pull a
cannot
pattern
see the
out?
pattern in the list. Like, I don't know what this. I know this is on this is on some kind of environmental site. So I'm thinking about energy usage in like high versus low level languages. Is the only thing I can think of that they're trying to draw from here, but it's not completely delineated. But that's my best guess, based on context clues.
There's a clue like at the bottom of the page that you can see right now.
The code written before I joined is the worst. Okay.
So I believe the difference here was roughly when the language was popular.
Okay, this has nothing to do with environmental things. I saw
Nothing
earthly
at all.
and green grasses, and I just assumed this was ignore me.
Yeah. So let's see here. The reason that developers think old code is old code is the worst. I mean, code that has been under active development for more than 3 years, and it will be hard to follow. What starts as straightforward file access layer develops special cases and performance optimizations in various branches controlled by config options. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, the reason that developers think old code is a mess is because it's because of a cardinal fundamental law of programming. It's harder to read code than to write it.
Joel Spolsky.
Joel Spolsky. And then the author here talks about like older code is harder to read it in Grok because of what they just mentioned. Like there's tons of edge cases, rules, performance optimizations, things that might not be straightforward but are necessary over time, versus new code, which is a lot easier to get into because you probably don't have a lot of that stuff, right?
I need that.
And you're reading Scott Adams.
Yeah, I need that Dilbert thing framed on my wall.
Yeah. So yeah, it's easy to understand code as you're writing it. So this is why you dread it. If much real world code is unfairly considered a mess, could programming languages be also unfairly judged? And so, like, if you build new things in Go but have to maintain a sprawling 20-year-old C++ code base, can you rank them fairly?
Right. Yeah.
So then it goes through. He does some ranking of things and tries to like prove like what's the correlation here between old and new. So the top 20 programming languages on their list as of July 2016, these are being like the most used, would be Java, C, C++, Python, as of 2016, that is. And so if you look at the numbers in the list that we had, 14 of them are brown and 8 of them are green.
And brown means a language that you're more likely to use in existing versus brownfield versus greenfield. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so green being the newer ones, right?
Go Rust, TypeScript. I don't see Elixir up here, Sean.
And then you fast forward, and then here's the breakdown.
Shredded
So
brown.
yeah, so of the ones listed in whatever 2016, most
wherever
of them are
there's
brown.
no overlap. Yeah.
2 of them are green, and then you flip it around, and it's 8 versus 5 green, based off of the year wherever that's listed up here. But anyway, so that's the point of this article. Like, yeah, a lot of these things might be hated because people working with them over the past year are working with legacy stuff. So what was Paul saying? Paul was saying in Discord, like, he says he thinks the point of this is that humans are the problem, necessarily that we need better programming languages. So, yeah. Oh yeah, then it talks about this. Anyway, yeah, interesting article. Episode title: Humans are the problem. You getting tired?
Yeah, it could be a title of any.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty tired too.
You are out next week. Spoilers.
Yeah.
I gotta find someone else to come on. Still have to do that.
Are you soliciting currently?
Huh?
State management is the problem. Is that a problem that you're dealing with right now?
Are you having it typing and I'm confused what's happening.
I was typing to somebody else, yes, but I was asking if you were soliciting the audience.
Elixir is the future. Right after Objective C. It's the future. Elixir is the far future.
Cottage industry of Elixir rewrites.
I mean, we're 2 for 2.
Rust on the beam.
Actually, 3 for, because I rewrote a huge chunk of RHR in Elixir. I mean, granted, it's all the, concurrent I/O message passing WebSocket stuff, which, to be honest, worked perfectly fine in Ruby, but Elixir works really, really well, really fine. I tried to rewrite our Rails backend in Phoenix, and it was just too much. It was just too much. It's chained all at once. Ruby on Rails. I saw RHR used as an acronym for. Where did I see it? I don't remember. It stands for something else. Yeah, Rust rewrites. You're rewriting Webpack in Rust, right? Oh, right hand rule. Yeah.
In Go, you mean? ES build?
Yeah, Go, whatever.
Vite is really nice, by the way. I'm using it for my personal projects, and it's great.
Right hand rule.
I don't understand what you're doing.
It's how you do a cross product. So if you've got vectors x and y, like how like you've got a Cartesian coordinate plane x and y, right? And then z is like coming up out of that plane. So when you're doing vector math, if you take the x and you do a cross product with the y, you get the z. And so that's called the right hand rule. And so you can visualize it by actually putting your hand like this. There's an x, y, and then z. And that's how you know which direction the vectors are going.
What's your vector, Victor?
And there's also left-hand rule to, obviously, the opposite.
No comments about my airplane joke just now? It wasn't even a joke. I just quoted it.
He's flying on instruments.
Hey, is that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? No, kid, it's not me.
It's one of the few movies I still have on DVD somewhere.
Cool. I just bought the book. Just tweeted Eric. Happy to support.
Sorry, Sean, I don't speak jive.
Got a Drax them sklounced.
Is that joke canceled? I probably shouldn't be making jokes like that. A lot of jokes in that movie are pretty not okay anymore. Probably not even okay for the time.
Boom, boom. Well, shall we?
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. I'm gonna go fall over into bed.
Yeah. Hypothetical in the clavicle. He's got a god, and he stands up. Where's them Terry's at? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember all the airplane references. I'm sorry.
No, this is Key and Peele.
Nope.
I'll send you a link. All right. Yeah. Have a good weekend, everybody. See ya. Is it believing status level inappropriate?
No, that Blazing Saddle is definitely way less appropriate than airplane.
All right, yeah.
Bye.